Hey guys, this is 4.4 day 2, factoring polynomials. So to start, our opener today is going to be looking at intervals of increasing and where is f of x greater than 0. So both of these questions are going to come from this same graph here. So go ahead and pause the video and try and do these on your own first. All right, so for the first one, we're looking at intervals of increasing. And remember, that's if I were to trace this graph, that would be wherever my pencil is moving upward. So I'm going to go ahead, start furthest to the left and trace this graph. And it starts in the upward direction, right? And then it stops there. And from there, it will go down. So that would be an interval of decreasing. And notice, again, it's going to go back up in this direction. So we have two intervals of increasing. And my first one, right, this graph is going to go down forever. So it's increasing starting at negative infinity and going to, remember, we're supposed to be using x values for this. So it increases, until negative 2.732, right? That's our first interval. And then our second interval starts at 0.732 and goes till infinity. And then those are going to be connected by a union symbol, which that matches up with option B. Then for the second one, we're looking, where is f of x greater than 0? And remember, that's anywhere that the graph is above the x-axis. So I'm going to trace that in green here. Notice then it drops below and goes back above there. So again, we see we're going to have two intervals. And again, we're looking at those x values, right? So this would be negative 4 to negative 1, connected by a union symbol, 2 to infinity, which is option A. All right, so the 4.4 day 1 was factoring by grouping as well as finding the greatest common factor and pulling that out. Today we're going to look at factoring the sum or difference of two cubes. So we can't factor this by grouping, right? And there's nothing in common to take out. So what do we do here? Well, the first step is we want to take the cube root of both of these functions. Now, if you don't know what the cube root is, you can use your calculator. But do we agree that the coefficient here is going to be 1, right? So I'm going to take the cube root of 1, which is just 1, and the cube root of x to the third is x. And I'm just simply going to rewrite that 1x to the third. Now, these two are totally equivalent statements, just written differently. And then here, if you don't know, go ahead, use your calculator. The cube root of 125 is 5, so I'm just going to rewrite that as 5 cubed. Okay, now step 2, we take out one of each. Okay, so I'm going to take out, I could write 1x, but I'm just going to write x, same thing. And I'm going to take out a negative 5. And then notice I'm left with an x squared, and I'm left with a 5 squared, which is 25. So I'm just going to write 25. Notice I left a big space there. That's because we have a middle term, but how do we figure that out? Well, if we were to look at this, let's see what we have. If I were to FOIL this back together, I'd have an x cubed plus 25x. Then I would have a negative 5x squared and a minus 125. Now notice 2 of these are what we need and 2 of them are not. So the x cubed minus 125, that matches, right? And that's what we need to get to. So our extras is 25x and that negative 5x squared. So our middle term is going to be what gets rid of that or what eliminates those. And to do that, I need my middle term to be 5x. Okay, and now you may be wondering, how in the world did she get that? But let's first just look. Notice if I were to multiply now by 5x, I'd get plus 5x squared and then minus 25x. And then notice all of those cancel, and I'm left with x cubed minus 125, which is what we're started with. So we know we factored correctly. Now, like I said, you're probably asking, how in the world did she get that middle term? Well, we're going to use something called SMS. It's called square, multiply, and change the signs, and then square again. So what we're doing with SMS is we square the very first term. So first we take the cube root, get our first part here, and then we square to get our first term. We multiply the x and the -5 to get our middle term. And then we change the sign. So multiply and change signs. And then to get our very last term, we square that second term. So how I remember this, s square multiply, and then I do a little c to change that sign, and then square. So again, to get x squared, I squared x. X squared is x, or x squared is x squared. To get the 5x, I multiplied x times -5 to get -5x, and then I changed the sign, so positive 5x, and then I square that -5 to get positive 25. Now let's go ahead and look at x cubed plus 25. I want you to use the SMCS to factor the x cubed plus 125, okay? So pause the video and try that. My first step is going to be take the cube root. So again, I'm going to have 1x cubed. My second term is 5 cubed. And then I'm going to take out one of each. So I would be taking out x plus 5. And I'd be left. Now I'm going to use that SMCS. So I square, do these in the same color. I'm squaring that first term to get my x squared. I multiply the x and the 5 to get 5x, and then I need to change that sign. So I'm going to have -5x. And then again, I square that last term to get my plus 25. And that's it. That's the factored part of that. Now, if this were factorable anymore, we would try to break this up, x and x, but this doesn't factor, so we leave it. But if this is factorable, we need to make sure we do that, factor it completely. Okay, so again, we're going to use square, multiply, change the sign, square. I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. So pause the video and try this out. So first step, we take the cube root, which again, if you don't know the cube root, that's totally fine. Use your calculator. Cube root of 64 is 4, and then x, so I'm just going to rewrite it as that, minus the cube root of 343 is 7. So I'm going to take out one of each, so I have 4x minus 7. Now I'm going to square my 4x to get 16x squared. Multiply and change the sign. So -7 times 4x gives me -28. Change the sign to get positive 28x. And then I'm squaring my last term to get plus 49. All right, and then under this are just the two options because we did this as a poll question when we did it live, which this would be option A, and these should be 49. Okay, lastly, we're going to go ahead and try an application problem. This is a little preview of solving quadratics. So this is what 4.5 is all about, but we're just going to get going on it to get started. So during the first 5 seconds of a roller coaster ride, the function h of t equals 4t cubed minus 16t squared minus 9t plus 36 represents the height in feet of the roller coaster after t seconds. How long is the roller coaster at or below ground level? All right, well, this is first thing I like to do a sketch. I see it's a cubed function. So I'm actually just going to draw my x-axis. And I know it has 3 zeros, right? Leading coefficient is positive, so it's going to end going up. So it'll look something like that, right? Again, just a very rough sketch. Now we're looking at how long is the roller coaster at or below ground level. Well, our x-axis would be ground level, right? So we're looking at where is it here, 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 or below. So any of this, right? That's what we're looking for. Well, to find that, we need to find our zeros. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and set this equal to 0. And we now need to solve for t, which how do we do that? Through factoring, okay? So from here, This was from 4.4 day 1. We're going to go ahead and factor this, which I see 4 terms, so I'm first going to try factor by grouping, which in common I see a 4t squared, which turns this into a t minus 4. And here I'm going to pull out my -9 to again make t minus 4. These match. And this is equal to 0. So I have t minus 4 times -4t squared. Oh, that's a positive 4. Minus 9. This is part of the equal sign. Whoops. All right, now I set both of these terms equal to 0 just as if we were factoring a quadratic. Similar. So now I need to solve for t. So here I get 4 equals t. Get 9 equals 4t squared. I'm going to divide by 4. And I get 9/4 equals t squared. Take the square root. And I get plus or minus 3/2 equals t. Okay. Now, let's make sense of this. So we're looking at t, which is time in seconds. Does it make sense to have -1.5 seconds? So that equals 1.5 and -1.5. No, right? We can't go back in time. So this answer doesn't make sense. So if I were to go over and look at my graph, I would have this point would be 1.5 and this point would be 4. And they're looking how long is the roller coaster at or below ground level. Well, it's at or below ground level from 1.5 seconds to 4 seconds, which is 2.5 seconds. And that's the answer. That's all we have for today. Make sure you do the 4.4 day 2 formative as well as the 4.4 homework. And as always, reach out with any questions you may have. Have a great rest of your day.